friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I wanted to talk about storing coffee for long term. Now, this is in reference to pre-roasted coffee. We don't store green coffee beans, at least we don't yet. We might someday, and I know a lot of people do that. From what I understand, green coffee beans store longer and better than pre-roasted coffee beans. And now you do that, you stock up on the green coffee beans, and then you roast them yourself. Now, Zach over at an American Homestead recently put out a video showing how he takes his green coffee beans and then roasts them in a pan. So I'm going to go ahead and link to that video in the description box down below so you can check that out if you're more interested in going that route. For me, I've been happy with buying the pre-roasted coffee beans in large quantities, and typically I just order them online, and I always go for the organic ones. I've tried several different brands. The best deal I get is actually on the Kirkland brand. If you buy it in the store itself, you can get the very best deal on that. And so sometimes I'll buy those. And I also stock up on the organic San Francisco brand that you can get. You can get like 2-pound bags or two 2-pound bags for a pretty good price. And I can buy those online, so that makes it easy for me to keep stocking up without having to make trips into town to get to the Costco. So what I do is I just leave them in the bags, because for me, that's the easiest way. They're the easiest to find places to put them in. They're going to take up the least amount of room. We probably have at least 2.5 years worth of coffee beans stored. And I've been doing it this way for years now and have had no issues with my coffee beans going rancid. Now, I don't know if anyone else has ever dealt with rancid coffee beans. I know it's just never, ever been an issue. But if you have, then please go ahead and share your experiences with that in the comment section down below. And also, keep in mind to put notes about where did you store them, how cool was the area, what is your climate like, is it hard to keep them cold? Because we've just simply never had a problem with them going rancid. Now, when it comes to pre-roasted coffee, yes, storing them in the whole bean form is going to be much better than stocking up on pre-ground coffee. That's going to be more likely to go rancid, but what I see more likely than it going rancid is it just losing its flavor over time. So what I have is I have a shelf that's dedicated just to coffee beans. And on that shelf alone, there's at least 2.5 years of coffee storage. And what I was doing before was actually rotating everything physically. As I would take a bag out, then I would move all the other bags. But now that my coffee storage has been growing a little bit more, I'm using a better system. It's actually the same one I use for the box milk. So as you can see in this image, you'll see a space, an opening right there. And right above the opening on that shelf, you'll see there's an arrow pointing down. Well, what that means is that is the row of coffee bags I'm currently working through. So once that row is empty, then I restock that section and move on to the next one, and then take that little tape with the arrow on it and move it over to the next section. I use the same method for the boxed milk because it's so much quicker and easier than trying to actually physically move everything around. So you can use this method with all kinds of different things. Now, the only problem I have with that is that means there's always a space, and I hate having a space. I like keeping my spaces full. But anyway, I'm finding this method works really good for me with the milk, so I just started it with the coffee beans because it's going to just really save me time and energy. And then what I do when I open a new bag, right here, what you'll see here, this is actually for ice, but I really liked the way this looked. And I used to keep the ground coffee in it on the counter. And now, you know, I'm always trying to make more counter space, especially with so many things I've always got fermenting. So this actually stays in the cabinet that I'll explain here in a minute. But what I do is I just top this off with some coffee beans right here. And then I work through this, and it's got the little scoop, so that makes it handy. And then I grind my coffee, and whenever I can, I use the electric coffee grinder. Now, before I got this, I found, I don't know if this is, I think this is the one I found at the garage sale. you know, for just a few dollars, brand new, still in the box. I think I paid $4 for it at a garage sale. So I figured I'd go ahead and grab it. But I had been grinding the coffee by hand up until then. So I had two coffee grinders. I have this old one. I think it's antique. It's at least vintage, but it might be antique. I can't remember already. I did a video on it a few years ago. My father had given it to me, and so I got to doing some research on it, and off of that research I did to find out how old it was, then I did a video on it, so I'll link to that video down below if you're curious. And though I love this coffee grinder and just the fact that it is older, it does have a smaller hopper. So I don't use this one anymore because I found this other one. It's not as cool, but it has a much bigger hopper. And as you can see in this image right here, Patrick actually installed it on top of that same table that my grain mill is installed on. I used to, when I was grinding the grains by hand, because now he's hooked a motor up to the grain mill, so I don't have to do that by hand, at least not now. Before he had the motor and before I had the electric coffee grinder, I would be grinding grains and coffee at the same time. I was grinding the coffee every morning in the manual grinder. So I do have backups. Even if our public power goes out, maybe it's like this time of the year where solar power is really on the minimal, and I can still fall back on grinding by hand. Now what I do instead of grinding it every day, especially with the electric grinder, is I will grind it's about a week's worth or so at a time. I don't know, I've never actually paid attention. But I will grind enough to fill up a quart-size mason jar. And then I'll work through this jar. And when it's empty, then I'll grind up a bunch more, and then I do it that way. It stays fresh enough for the time it takes us to work through it like this, and then I just grind it up as I need it. So that's how I do it. And that way, if some mornings, like usually I'm up pretty early, especially in the wintertime, I'm more apt to wake up at 3:30 or 4 in the morning. I don't want to be grinding coffee and making a lot of noise in the morning when I'm trying to let Patrick sleep, but I want to get the coffee going and get it on the wood stove, especially if we have a cooler fire in the wood stove, like some mornings we do. Then I like to get that coffee on there right away so I can get going. So by the time Patrick gets up, he's got a nice hot cup of fresh coffee. So anyway, that's why I like having it ground and ready to go. It's another reason why this is one less thing I have to do in the morning. I just have to set aside some time to do a whole bunch at once, and it really doesn't take that much longer to do a whole jar because I got to pull all this stuff out anyway. And so then I just keep these things here in that same cabinet that the coffee mill and the grain mill are stored in. And even though this looks cool, it's just anymore, I've always got so much stuff going on, I just kind of keep it up and out of the way. But anyway, so that's how I do it, and that's how I store my coffee, and that's how I now am rotating through my coffee beans. And again, I want to say this again, been doing this for years and have yet to have any coffee go bad on us just keeping it in the original packages. So much like pasta, you can keep pasta in their same packages without it spoiling. But again, there's different things you have to take into consideration, because if you live in a really hot climate and you have a difficulty finding a room or a closet where things can stay cooler, you might have more issues with this. I still kind of doubt it, but I'm hoping other people will share their stories down below. And also, if you're one that does buy green coffee beans and you like to roast your own, go ahead and share with us your experiences down below, or if you know any other people that have videos out about roasting their coffee beans that in the way they do it, because everybody's going to have their own way of doing it, then go ahead and post the links to that down below. And then there was another question I wanted to answer in this video, and somebody asked me, can I dehydrate coffee beans? Well, there's absolutely no need to dehydrate the coffee beans. They're already roasted and dried the way they are. So no need to go through that extra work. Just, you can store them as is. And yes, if you would prefer to, you can take them all out of the plastic bags and repackage them into Mylar or repackage them into glass jars. I personally wouldn't bother with it because of the space it takes up and the extra time when they stay just fine in the plastic bags, unless your issue, of course, is with the plastic itself, which I totally understand. I try to get away from plastic as much as possible, but when you're really trying to put away that food, jars are great, but they're going to make things take up a lot more room. You might be better off, especially if you're limited in space, just keeping the things that can last just fine in the packages they came in, that's going to take up the least amount of space in a lot of cases anyway. All right, well, I hope you found this video helpful. Again, these are just what I do. It doesn't mean it's the only right way or that it's even the right way for you. Just want to answer a few questions and get that out there. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.